Frank Warren was asked whether he would put Joe Joyce in against Deontay Wilder in this interview, and he responded very positively, and he appeared to be enthusiastic about that fight. He said, yeah, he'd put Joyce in with Deontay Wilder in a heartbeat. Now, after watching Joyce get hit so clean against Christian Hammer several times, most people are looking at that and saying, Wilder ices this guy. Yeah, he's going to be able to take Christian Hammer's shots, but Deontay Wilder's power is on another level. And I tend to concur with that. However, Joyce is this optical illusion. He fights to the level of his opposition, seemingly. When he fought Daniel Dubois, he wasn't getting hit with silly shots like that. And Daniel Dubois is a lot more capable than Christian Hammer. So figure it out, right? But what I will say is, Joyce does take a good shot. Christian Hammer is a 260-pound man, and he was slinging those right hands over like he was bowling a cricket ball. So he was really leaning into the shots. Joyce was able to take them. To put it in perspective, Tyson Fury, who is regarded as having a pretty decent chin, he's been decked several times, but he recovers quick. He was dropped by Steve Cunningham with that type of shot. He was dropped by Nevin Pikage with that type of shot. And I would argue that neither one of those guys hits as hard as Christian Hammer. Now, that's the argument I'm making here. So I would say that Joe Joyce has a better chin than Tyson Fury. So if we're thinking about what effect Deontay Wilder's punches are going to have on Joe Joyce, I think that, Deontay Wilder's punches, I thought I said somebody else's for a second. I think that Wilder would be able to knock Joyce out, but I wouldn't be surprised if Joyce was able to recover from a few of Wilder's shots or take a few of Wilder's shots without going down, maybe without being badly staggered. But eventually you have to figure that Wilder's going to start hurting him and eventually, put Joyce on the canvas. So it's a fight I'd like to see. Joyce is mandatory, according to Frank Warren, probably isn't going to be until 2023. In the meantime, Joyce seems to want to do a Dylan White, and that is take on dangerous opponents in the interim rather than just sitting it out and fighting these, lower tier knockover job. Well, not that Christian Hammer turned out to be a knockover job, but on paper, it was a straightforward fight for Joe Joyce. And I guess it was in terms of him ending it in 4 rounds. But rather than Joyce just sitting around and taking on this level of opponent several more times, he appears to want to get in there with the likes of a Dylan White, with the likes of a Deontay Wilder, several other top heavyweights. So I commend Joe Joyce for that. And as I say, at 36 years of age, he has to make as much money as he possibly can. And that's really the main point here. Yeah, he's waiting for his title shot, but in the meantime, it's not just about taking a risk for the sake of taking a risk, fighting a Wilder or a Dylan White or whatever. It's about making money. I always talk about fighters having a small window within which to make life-changing sums of money. Well, Joe Joyce's window is even smaller than normal because he's already so old. He's already a 36-year-old man, I think turning 37 this year, correct me if I'm wrong. So he's really got to get a mover. He's got to take every big money fight that he can get. And you have to imagine the Deontay Wilder fight would be a big money fight, whether it's in the United States or in the UK. And similarly, the Dylan White fight would be a big money fight. So let's see what happens. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If a Joe Joyce, Deontay Wilder fight were to happen, let's say back end of this year, who would you be picking? How do you think the fight would go? I have to imagine most of you are picking Wilder by knockout, but bear this in mind. Tyson Fury beat Deontay Wilder by applying pressure. In the second fight in particular, he used a jab to keep Deontay Wilder off balance, and then he just mauled him at mid and close range. That's something that Joe Joyce can do. Joe Joyce also has fast feet. People forget this. Yeah, he's got slow hands and he's far too hittable, but he has fast feet and he has a good jab when he decides to use it. I thought he didn't use it enough against Christian Hammer, but he used it a lot, certainly in the Daniel Dubois fight. So when I think of the tactics that Tyson Fury used to defeat Wilder, I think Joe Joyce can replicate something similar. The third fight, perhaps even more so, because that was just Tyson Fury trundling forward, he wasn't really fighting the way that he did in the second fight, where it was all behind a big jab to maintain that distance and knock Wilder off balance, keep him on his heels and then start mauling him at mid and close range. Fury kind of dispensed with a jab a little bit in the third fight and just pushed Wilder back relentlessly and was fighting him on the inside and what have you and wore him down. Joyce can do that too. The problem is Joyce isn't defensively as good as Tyson Fury. And even as good defensively as Tyson Fury is, he still got clipped and dropped in that third fight against Wilder. So, I'm not saying that Joyce can replicate what Fury did defensively when he was coming in, but he can replicate what Fury did offensively. He could make Wilder very uncomfortable with the amount of shots he's throwing and the amount of pressure he's putting on him. And I certainly think that Joe Joyce would be physically stronger than Deontay Wilder. So, yeah, I'm not counting Joe Joyce out. That's the point I want to make here. I think that there's a very good chance Wilder could chin him. But if Joyce is somehow able to adjust and nullify that right hand, then I think Wilder's in a world of trouble. To be honest, if Joyce could take that right hand away and keep the pressure on, Wilder's going to have problems. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think Frank Warren's serious about making Joyce versus Wilder, if he can talk to Shelly Finkel, or just think it's just cap from Frank Warren? Do you think that he knows Joyce is going to get found out at top level, or believes that Joyce is going to get found out at top level, particularly against a puncher as prolific as Deontay Wilder? Or do you believe that he has as much confidence in Joe Joyce as he's making out here? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below.